Hi everyone, this is Neel Raithatha, consultant audiologist and director of earwax. Thank you for joining me in my latest video using the iClearScope endoscope, and I have a really interesting case for you guys. This patient actually attended with both ears being blocked, but I'm just showing you their right ear in this particular video. Their left ear was actually far more complex, and it was a lengthy procedure. I think it took me between 30 and 40 minutes. And in that procedure, I believe I've unearthed a potential rare ear canal cholesteatoma. So I thought I will upload that video in a separate video to do it justice. So stay tuned for that. Now, this right here was also very interesting. They had what we call a remodeled ear canal. And I'll explain what I mean by that during the course of this procedure. So as you can see, this earwax is extending right from the entrance to their eardrum. The consistency makes it a bit difficult to suction, so I've just installed some medical grade olive oil spray, and what the medical grade olive oil spray will do will help to coagulate, bind this wax together. If you've been watching my videos, you know I like to make food analogies, so I always compare olive oil to an egg in a potato cake or fish cake recipe. It just helps to bind all the ingredients together, and in the case of earwax, it helps to bring it together, and so it's easier to suction in larger lumps. It also helps to lubricate the inside of the suction tube, so it helps to minimize blockages when you're performing microsuction. The only downside with when you're using any form of drops in the ear during the procedures, as you can see at the moment, the suction tube is not only suctioning the earwax, but it's also suctioning the oil. So it can cause a bit of blurriness on screen, but it's only temporary, and when you know the ear anatomy, you kind of work around that. So I managed to remove the lateral plug of wax without much difficulty, but this more medial plug was lodged very deep in their ear where the ear canal was remodeled. So let me explain what I mean by remodeling. Now, all the bone in our body is continuously repairing, healing, and regrowing. And it does that via specialized cells that live on the surface of the bone called osteoclasts and also osteoblasts. Now, osteoclasts are responsible in the breaking down of old bone into its core minerals, and it then redistributes the broken down bone into the bloodstream, where it's used by other bone in the body to form new bone, new bony growth. So the osteoclasts help to break the bone down, whereas osteoblasts help to configure and form new bone tissue. And the process of the bone being broken down into its core minerals by the osteoclast is called bony resorption. And you will see, once I remove this plug, the medial aspect of the ear canal, what I call the pars interna, so the inner third of the ear canal, the osseous section, the bony part, is extremely widened, and there's a kind of an abnormal contour on the front part of the ear canal, the anterior canal wall. And with someone with an ear anatomy like this, where it's kind of widened and remodeled, so it's the remodeling is another phrase called for the widening of the ear canal, so it's changed shape basically. The inner part of the ear canal is so much wider than the entrance that it's going to mean that this patient will require regular cleaning of their ear, because all this wax that's being formed deeper in the ear, it's such a huge mass. It's going to be very difficult for it to naturally migrate out of the ear, because the entrance of the ear canal is a lot narrower in comparison to the middle and inner third. Now, why is this ear canal being remodeled? This patient may have previously suffered from a keratosis obturans, which is a plug of dead skin. So it's an epidermal skin plug that forms in the bony part of the ear canal. And the primary cause of keratosis obturans is inflammation in the ear. When our ear canals are inflamed, it produces and secretes more skin. And the more skin your ear produces, the more dead skin it's also going to create within the ear canal. And in some cases, this dead skin forms into a plug, and it forever gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and it starts to compress against the canal walls. Now, it could just be the physical pressure of that epidermal skin plug. Think about it like a rubber ball that's expanding, so it can be quite painful for the patient. So it could either be the sheer physical pressure created by the dermal plug, or when pressure is applied against the ear canal, it irritates the periosteum. Now, the periosteum is a thin sheet, if you like, a thin membrane that sits on the surface of the bone. And the periosteum is responsible for providing the bone with all the blood, nutrients, oxygen that it needs to survive. And when the periosteum is inflamed due to the compression of the skin plug up against the canal wall, that process itself can initiate the osteoclasts, which then undergo the process of bony resorption. So it breaks down the bone into its minerals. That broken down bone is then redistributed to other parts of the body where new bony formation is necessary and required. And that leads a widening of the ear canal, and that's a hallmark of keratosis obturans. Alternatively, this patient may have had a previous rare external auditory canal cholesteatoma, and the reason why I'm kind of using that as a plausible alternative is that they do, I suspect, have a canal cholesteatoma in their left ear, which is quite visible. They have a bony erosion of the floor of the ear canal, and I think after this plug you will see this widening. And they've, as I mentioned earlier, they've got this really abnormal contour of the front part of the ear canal. You can see that ridge, and there's some keratin there. We call that a keratin trail. So keratin is a protein found in dead skin, and the ear canal is actually lined in dead skin, including the surface of the eardrum. And that dead skin, slowly but surely, should make its own way out of the ear. And we call that epithelial migration. It's like a conveyor belt. And sometimes, especially when you've got this abnormal contours of the ear canal, you can see the trail of keratin from where it was traveling from the eardrum. You can just see that on the right hand side of the suction probe, where the prominent ridges, you can see a thin sheet of skin, and it's, as I said, it's like a trail. It's a linear line. Now, I've cleared the majority of this patient's ear canal, but there is some left in the annulus region. So the annulus region, you may be able to see it better once I remove this, but the main body of the eardrum, the pars tensor, it's surrounded by fibrocartilage, and we call that the annulus. And it's in that kind of region where the ear canal has widened, which has meant there's some wax and dead skin trapped in this widened section of the ear canal adjacent to the eardrum. So I think I'm going to put some more oil in the ear just to soften this, and I'm just using the fine end suction probe. Another interesting thing you may be able to observe with this patient's eardrum is on top of the hammer bone, the pars flaccida section, even that part of the bone is somewhat eroded, and we call that an autoatticotomy. So the attic is the top part of the eardrum, and if the eardrum is sucked in, if it's retracted, again, the pressure created by the eardrum being sucked in on the top part of that bone, and that top part of the bone is called the scutum. That itself can lead to the process of bony resorption. So the eardrum being sucked in, it compresses against the scutum bone, it initiates the osteoclast, and you can get an erosion of the attic region of the eardrum. And it's the attic region of the eardrum that's more susceptible to being retracted due to negative middle ear pressure. So if you've got a blocked eustachian tube and there's no air in your middle ear, the eardrum can get pulled inwards, and it typically gets pulled in at the top section where the eardrum is more elastic. So I'm just mopping up in the inferior recess. You can see as we approach the eardrum, there's also a ridge of bone, it kind of like a little a mound. It goes up and down, and it's very difficult to actually observe, and I'm just angling the endoscope downwards into that ridge. And this midsection is also quite widened. So because of an ear anatomy like this, I've asked this patient to attend on a yearly basis, if not sooner, if they feel that there is a block. They last attended about 4 years ago, and according to my notes, I did actually advise the patient to attend on a regular basis due to their kind of somewhat widened and abnormal ear canal anatomy. So I'm happy with that. There is some residual wax there, but It's very difficult to gain access there. I even bent the fine end to kind of go over and down over that ridge, but I'm more than happy with that. Patient could hear very well. Now, do stay tuned for their left ear, which I'll upload in due course. Take care, guys. Bye.